So this is a new indie film that came out sometime in 2023. I remember, I think it came out in one of the festivals as well. It's a small film from Searchlight about a theater camp, and it's filmed in that kind of Parks and Rec office mockumentary documentary style. And it's this kind of rundown summer theater camp that's having financial troubles, that has a very eccentric cast of teachers and kind of professionals who would have, could have, but never really made it. They have a bunch of talented diva students, and there's lots of drama. And if you've ever worked at a summer camp or a music camp, which I spent many a summer doing exactly that, a lot of this is really accurate. It's very funny. It also has a lot of really heartwarming moments, has a lot of really great music, despite it being kind of a parody of musicals and musical camp. It actually has a lot of fun times. So that's our setup. Zach, what'd you think?
So I didn't really know what to expect with theater camp. I knew it was kind of this parody of theater kids, which I am not, and I don't know many theater kids in my life. It's a shame. I think they'd probably really enjoy this. Also, yeah, a little bit of a riff on summer camp, a la, I don't know, Wet Hot American Summer, right? Like kind of this goofy Bad News Bears kind of thing, right? Kids all go to camp, and the people running the camp are basically incompetent. It's got a mockumentary style. It's shot a lot like... honestly, the way it cuts to like title cards and it just has text on explaining what's going on reminded me a little bit of like Monty Python, The Holy Grail. But I think what's interesting about this movie, directed by Nick Lieberman and Molly Gordon. Molly Gordon stars in the film as Rebecca Diane, character we'll talk about in just a second. Nick Lieberman, meanwhile, actually shot a short of this movie, I think in 2020, called Theater Camp, starring Molly Gordon, Noah Galvin, and Ben Platt, who are all in this feature. And that was a lot simpler. This movie was really off the cuff. It's weird. It's weird to look at. It doesn't have a lot of IMDb trivia, but I'll give you the basics. They shot it in 19 days. They shot it with hardly any money. And reportedly, according to IMDb trivia, take that what it's worth, the whole movie's improv. So they didn't have a script, which is insane because it's really funny. And if you didn't have a script and you guys just improv'd your way through this in 19 days, that's a pretty big feat. It's not a perfect film, especially if you improv'd it. But it's a wild statement because the editing is really sharp and there's a lot of really funny lines in here. So I feel like they had to have had at least something to go off. But certainly the theatrics are all here.
Yeah, they definitely had a lot of structure, even if maybe it wasn't like line by line written. You know, it's kind of in the way that the Judd Apatow crew would improvise things, but there's still a whole lot of like structure and framework to kind of follow. But it is hilarious, and like I said, having worked at a camp, it's so accurate to the crazy staff full of divas who are trying to do their best to perform while being teachers of the theater. Like you have like the costume guy, the acting guy, the music person, and they're all like, my thing is the most important thing that's happening. You have the what kicks off this whole thing is that Joan, who's the founder of the camp, goes into a coma in the opening scene because there's a strobe light in one of the performances that causes her to have a seizure and go into a coma. And this is how the movie starts. And her like Gen Z / millennial influencer son takes over and is trying to like, influence his way into running the camp. And, it's one of these classic things. The bank is going to foreclose if you don't somehow come up with the money. So it has all these just really funny setups. Again, you have your kids who are incredibly talented. Like these kids are amazing. Like their play is not being good, but I was like, if you would have had a kid in like this in your camp, I mean, they'd be an instant star. It's some really good stuff.
Yeah, there's a great tryout scene when they're hosting auditions for what plays people are going to be in. And, a bunch of our creative cast is sitting down at a table in front of the stage. These kids are coming out. They got a guy playing piano. And the kids are just singing whatever bits of musicals they want. Every one of those kids is good. Everyone. And it's like, it must have been so weird for them to be directed to like, hey, you're going to walk on stage. We're going to film it. belt your heart out, really give it your all. This is a comedy. People are meant to laugh. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like tonally, it wouldn't have been easy to communicate this. They did a great job of directing all of these kids in what to do. They're really simple. Most of them are really one note, right? You're not really there for the kids. You're there for Troy Rubinsky, who is Joan's son, who is now running the camp, played by Jimmy Tatro, is this total dude bro who's got a GoPro and a YouTube channel. He's an
got the
entrepreneur.
Baller Foundation.
God, the Baller Foundation does not fit in at all with the creatives of the camp. Ben Platt plays Amos Klobuchar, which is such a ridiculous name, right next to Molly Gordon, who plays Rebecca Diane, co-writer, co-director of the
That's
film.
Her first name is Rebecca
Diane. Yes, right. There's no last name listed, just Rebecca Diane. The two of them are like this inseparable partnership who've been at this camp for years. They went to this camp when they were there, when they were young. Now they teach at it. Both of them are basically failed performers who always say we're performers who teach acting on the side, but really it's like you're acting teachers who perform sometimes when you can get roles. Noah Galvin plays Glenn, the tech guy, who is a really tremendous performance, who's basically backseated most of the movie. It's a shame because they're really tremendous. Also, fun fact, another IMDb trivia, Ben Platt and Noah Galvin are actually dating in real life. Didn't know that, and their characters don't really interact in this movie, but still charming. Additionally, Iowa Beery shows up, Nathan Lee Graham as Clive DeWitt in a really funny role, Amy Starris as Joan. Like, overall, like, a surprisingly rounded cast. Oh, and Patty Harrison, hot off the set of I Think You Should Leave, where she is tremendous in her guest role. She's kind of an antagonist from a rival camp. It's really nice, and has like an equestrian club, and all the kids wear fancy polos. And meanwhile, Adirondacks, which is the name of our kind of main camp, is run down and crummy. And Carolyn Krause comes over and is like, "Hey, we'd love to make an offer on this camp. We know you're struggling." And Troy, the entrepreneur, he calls himself, is.
There's a lot of
charmed by
terrible
her,
yet clever puns.
Yes, like just chock full of goofy lines. Like I said, I'm really astounded at the idea that the script is improvised because it's so funny and the editing is really tight on a lot of the gags. They'll cut right after somebody says something funny to another scene, gives you a moment to laugh. Like I was really surprised at how well it's put together, especially since Noah Lieberman, director, has not done much outside of this. Like, he's not put together a lot of features. This is a small one in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, it reminded me, one of the things that's so funny is that they are so hard on these kids. Like, these kids are, first of all, they're amazing, but when they are meeting with their acting coaches and music teachers and stuff, they're just like overly harsh. That's part of what's so funny is they're talking to these kids like they're adults, like they're trained adults, and they're not. And they're like, what are your character's allergies? I need to know so we can further inform the performance. Like,
right.
This kind of level of scrutiny. And like, again, the music is supposed to be cheesy. Like, Amos and Rebecca Diane write a musical every summer that the kids perform, and it sounds like a total disaster. And then when it's finally performed, it's actually really, really good and heartwarming. But it does a good job of it's satire, it's parody, but there's also a lot of kind of real elements because we can tell from our teachers are people that have great passion for what they do, and they were very good but didn't quite make it, and it kind of addresses the issues like that.
Yeah, I love the stress that these camp counselors are putting on themselves because they're so passionate about Adirondacks and about the arts, even though all of them are functionally failed performers. There's a great, after the tryout scene, there's a great bit where they've got a chalkboard with every kid's name and photo, and they've got roles, and they're trying to assign them and arguing viciously over who's going to play the lead in this role versus who's going to be this, and trying desperately to figure out something that at a summer camp for 3 months nobody would care about, right? Nobody should care that much. And
the funny thing is I've been in that exact scenario. The camps I worked at they were music camps, so you were deciding who to put in what ensemble.
Yeah.
And that's totally what because you're trying to balance it, but also you're trying to it's so funny because they decide on the cast list, and then you have angry parents calling, and that's exactly what happens. Why isn't my kid first chair? He's so better than everyone else.
Yeah.
It's not far from the truth.
I think that that leads into what's probably my favorite performance in the movie is low key Jimmy Tatro as Troy. He's so funny because he's so different than everybody else, but he's like this blustery, like big confidence kind of guy. So you can tell he's insecure when he says stuff, and like none of the kids go for it, and nobody listens to him. Meanwhile, like Ben Platt gets on stage and sings like 2 bars of a musical, and every kid is like silent, like to listen to him because they think he's great and they respect him. And Troy's like trying so desperately to be cool and meet these kids on their level, but also save the camp, right? Because it's going under, and he can't figure out like how he's gonna dig it out, and ends up being like a really understated but really funny performance. Yeah, him like picking up the phone the day after like all the roles are assigned for some mom, and he's like, "Yes, I understand that your son did not get the role you want. Yes, I understand. I didn't sign the castings." Like just trying to like kind of ward off angry parents and just keep things running. Like really funny.
It is crazy.
Yeah, that is funny. I didn't actually know that's a real thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it's parody, but it is very much based on how it is to work a summer camp, to deal with performing children and their parents and their aspirations.
Yeah.
And things like that. Like I said, I worked over a decade of summers at a music camp, and it was like PTSD. Some of this.
Odd. It's really cool to see how much of it's shot practical too. Yeah, they shot it in less than a month. They just went out and rented a summer camp, right? And they just like had a bunch of kids out. Okay, yeah, we're gonna shoot it. We're gonna be here this day. Some of you are gonna be in this class. Like, just kind of put it together, and it ends up coming out really great. Like for a small pet project that's indie and low budget and covered in film grain to feel really really homey, and all handheld to feel documentary. I think it sticks the landing. Like I was really pleased. Yeah, I wouldn't mind showing this to other people. Who either did summer camp or theater kids in my life, which I don't know any, but if you're one of you listening to this show, I think theater camp might be a movie for you. Andy, any other thoughts or recommendations?
I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend theater camp?
Yeah, I absolutely would. It's on Hulu, so it's streaming if you have that service. It's a lot of fun. It's a quick 90 minutes. Especially you'll find it hilarious if you've ever worked or gone to a summer camp, if you've been involved in the arts at any level. And it's heartwarming, it's heartbreaking at times, but it's really fun and entertaining, and it goes by quick. So highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Theater camp's great. You should totally go watch it. Not perfect, but like for a small 95-minute feature, you could certainly do worse. It's a great laugh. If you got a Hulu subscription, you should totally go check out Theater Camp. You know any theater kids, camp kids, send it their way. I think they might have a good time. And that wraps our show. God, episode 227 of Off Script in the bag. Andy, it's a lean month at the movies. There's not a lot going on after summer. That Haunting in Venice and Nun 2 story we covered earlier said it great. Things are slowing down. So, with that in mind, what are we watching next week?
So we're taking next week off, but for those of you on the lookout, the big release for September 22nd is Expendables 4, that action series, which is getting more and more diminishing returns, will be out next week. But we will be back on October 3rd, and we're going to take a look at The Creator, the new sci-fi epic starring John David Washington, directed by Gareth Edwards. And we're also going to finally take a look at After Sun, which was a big film from last year starring Paul Mescal, that I've heard nothing but good things about since then, and I'm still hearing about that movie, and it's already way past award season. Like, it won, I don't think it actually won very much. It might have won a writing award. But we're going to be checking that out, and that's on Paramount Plus with Showtime.